Week 1 of the NFL was filled with several injuries to big names, with a lot of them being forced out of the game prematurely as a result of hard-hitting tackles. In this video, we're going to look at the whole injury report, however focus particularly on 4 injuries. The first to Baker Mayfield, the second to Patrick Mahomes, the third to Nick Foles, and the fourth to Tyreek Hill. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Matthew Fayisa and I'm a third year medical student from London. In this video, we're going to look at the NFL injury report and focus on a few key injuries that occurred to big names. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any content in the future. Drop a like, and once this video is finished, why not go back and look at our other videos on NFL stars, such as the one on Andrew Luck and his early retirement, and the other on AJ Green's ankle injury, which occurred in the preseason and forced him out for a couple months. There were quite a few injuries in week 1, one notably happening to Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is currently listed as having a wrist bruise, and this could be potentially the reason for why he threw 3 interceptions and had a below par performance for the Browns against the Titans in their 43-10 loss. I'm not too worried about this injury. I do suspect he'll be back pretty much next week and he'll be playing for the Browns, so Browns fans don't have nothing to worry about for that. The other 2 we're going to focus on, coincidentally, both involve the clavicle bone, which is the collarbone, which connects the shoulder joint to the sternum in the middle of the ribs. Jaguars' current quarterback and Super Bowl MVP winner Nick Foles injured his clavicle bone after getting tackled throwing a touchdown for the Jaguars in their game against the Chiefs. As he released to throw the ball, Nick Foles was tackled by defensive end Chris Jones, who aggressively drove Nick Foles' shoulder to the ground and resulted in him breaking his clavicle bone. Notable players to sustain this injury are Aaron Rodgers back in 2017. This is a straightforward injury to treat. Surgeons just have to kind of mend the broken bone and pull it back in place. And whilst Nick Foles is in rehab, put him in a sling. This will result in him missing a couple of matches. However, it is quite a straightforward injury to treat with traditional means. Foles coming off immediately after injury is not a surprise, as a collarbone fracture is quite a hard-hitting injury where the person is in a lot of pain. Foles would have experienced swelling, tenderness, bruising, and potentially a lot of numbness and tingling. Even though this occurred onto Nick Foles' non-throwing arm, it's still quite a serious injury in the sense that it would have caused him a lot of pain and would have altered his balance when throwing and made it quite impossible to play the game. I do understand if there's some concern for the Jaguars this season, as now they have no starting QB and may be forced to kind of put in their rookie quarterback who they drafted this year. However, looking on the health side for Nick Foles, obviously this is not a long-lasting injury and it will heal and recover. However, there is some concern as he suffered the same injury in 2014. So potentially he could re-aggravate this injury and it might be a sign of weakness in that fractured area due to it being fractured more than one time. Unlike in 2014 when he had the injury, Nick Foles is going to have surgery on Monday. The Jaguars have kind of rushed him in to kind of fast track the recovery process and get him back as soon as possible. In terms of how much time he will miss, in 2014 he missed the last 2 months of the season. However, now, due to the fact that he's having surgery and the Jaguars are probably going to try and speed him back in since they just gave him a large contract, so I suspect he'd come back in around 6 to 8 weeks time, which would mean he'd come back to play either against the Jets or the Texans. Surprisingly enough, in the same game the Chiefs had a couple of injuries. One was to Tyreek Hill, who had a collarbone injury as well, and the other 2 was their star-studded quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who was the MVP last season. Patrick Mahomes' injury is just one to watch for the future, for the rest of the season, as it was an ankle sprain. Ankle sprains are manageable, however, if they're not rehabbed correctly, then the person could be forced out for a few games. It does look like he'll be playing next game. However, I do suspect the Chiefs will be rehabbing the hell out of the ankle and making sure he's ready for the next game. His ankle injury is not too serious as he was able to continue playing. You know, if we look at AJ Green's ankle injury, who I have a video on, make sure to watch that after this. He had a grade 3 ankle ligament sprain, which resulted in all these ligaments being torn off the bone and meaning he's been out for 2 to 3 months as a result of that. So Patrick Mahomes for sure does not have that injury. It's probably a grade 1 sprain. So just a bit of rest, ice, compress and elevate. Them 4 methods will definitely kind of help recover their ankle and make sure he's ready for the next game. For the Chiefs in that game, they also had an injury to the fastest player in the NFL, the cheetah, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, their wide receiver, had a clavicle bone injury like Foles. However, it kind of affected the opposite side. So this is quite a rare injury, and it's called a sternoclavicular dislocation, where the clavicle, which is a collarbone and attaches to the sternum manubrium handle, which is the top part. I'll show an image on the side. These two kind of dislocate and dislodge out of place. This is a very rare injury, and I've never seen it before whilst watching sports. Instead of the clavicle breaking in the middle of the collarbone or towards the AC joint, with a shoulder dislocation being one of the most common injuries in sports and in American football as a result of the tackling, the clavicle instead dislodged towards the middle, the center, where it forms a joint with the sternum at the point called the manubrium, which is the handle. Tyreek Hill was hospitalized and immediately sent to an emergency and care center in Jacksonville, where he was treated by orthopedic doctors who helped diagnose the injury and assess what actually went wrong. Because of the rare nature of this injury, I couldn't find a specific time frame for his recovery or his rehab, and I couldn't even find another player that had that injury in any sport. This is kind of a testament to how rare the injury actually is and the kind of situation that the Chiefs are put in with the Tyreek Hill injury. Looking on a few healthcare websites and medical websites about the injury, it does suggest that surgery is unlikely and that rehab through methods such as RICE, just resting and keeping the joint stable, is the way forward. However, due to the NFL having access to kind of private healthcare and unlimited funds in that sense, he possibly could have surgery. If he does, that might mean he misses out on a large amount of games. But definitely under public healthcare, say if an ordinary person got injured or a civilian got injured, they probably would just rest the injury and potentially wear a sling to keep that joint in place and prevent any further re-aggravation of the injury. This is quite problematic for the Chiefs from a football standpoint, as they've got their quarterback who has a lingering injury now on his ankle, and his number one receiver, Tyreek Hill, who is injured and is out for the foreseeable future. For more analysis on injuries, check out my other videos and definitely subscribe to the channel. You know, we have quite interesting content with the sports analysis from every sport, and I also give a little bit of insight into my life as a medical student. So next week, my second installment of my second year medical degree, I'll be putting that up on YouTube. And if you're interested in NFL in particular and you're still here, why not watch our videos on AJ Green's ankle injury, who's out for 3 months, and Andrew Luck's early retirement and my take on it.
Dynasty program initiated.
Dynasty boy. Yeah. Yeah. I had to get out at end, so hopefully I could focus on music fully. So I went back to uni to find out the distraction of being fresh is a triple D amount.